You may have been with Minnesota the last time we had you on the show, but you're back, man. Welcome back to the show. How are you, pal?
Appreciate you guys. No, I'm excited to be here. Thanks for having me. I mean, shoot, it's been that long. We're well overdue.
Yeah, it's crazy, too, because, I was just running down some of your stats to make sure I had everything buttoned up before the interview. And, I mean, I know you've been in Cleveland for a minute, but 7 seasons already.
Crazy.
I mean, does it seem that long?
I had to look back this year because, I finally realized that, again, like you said, I spent 6 years in Minneapolis with the Timberwolves, and now spent more time with the Cavs than I have there. So it's just crazy. 13 years in, just shows you how fast time flies, and it's been quite a year for the NBA, to say the least.
Yeah, it has been. And 13 years means you're getting up there a little bit. You're the old head in a lot of these locker rooms in this Cleveland locker room. When you think about that, like, do you think about the end? How you feeling? What are your plans going forward? We know you struggled a little bit, only 25 games this past season, but what are your plans for yourself as a player going forward?
Yeah, I think just like you mentioned, those 25 games. I think the most important thing. I was talking to somebody in the military. I said, what's the best thing that you provide for your team? And he said, just being available. And I thought, wow, that's that hit close to home for me. I thought I got so unlucky with the injury this year. It took me a little minute to come back. You mentioned the 25 games, so just being available. If I'm healthy and available, I have so much more to give. I know what I'm capable of. So long as you can really shoot the ball and really rebound in this league, you'll stick around for a long time. But again, like you said, being a leader as well, learning from and understanding the sacrifice from those championship teams, what it takes to win, and providing that as a voice as well. I think that can be really paramount for a young team. I mean, I was 32 years old out there playing with 4 guys, or starting with 4 guys that were 22 years and younger. So, I mean, that's in some ways early on not conducive to winning, but growing with them and seeing, what they're capable of. I mean, Jared Allen is an awesome player. He's a franchise center. Colin Sexton, so many 20 or 25-point games. One of the most hardest workers I've ever seen. Isaac Okoro, who came into the league, everybody thought he was just going to be a defender. We put him on pretty much the best player 1 through 3 every single night. And it really came into his own, started scoring the ball, had career highs, was getting up in 5, 6, 7 rebounds, assists in a number of games. And then Darius Garland, he had a huge leap this year in his second year. After having his rookie season cut short by 17 games, only playing 4 games at Vandy. And, really this thing is second run through the league. He had a really great season and figured out he can pretty much get to any spot he wants to on the floor and impact the game so much, from being able to get guys involved, really play a good defensive role, but really score the ball at a high level too, get into the paint and also shoot at a very high clip from 3. So those guys that are in there starting with me, as well as the supporting unit, could really make a big leap this summer. So this is a major summer for us, especially in terms of myself, just getting my legs back underneath me and turning that final corner on that calf injury for me.
Yeah, you guys have some young players, and I don't need to be redundant here. You rip through everybody. I like all those players. So future should be bright in Cleveland. We're talking to Kevin Love, 5-time All-Star, NBA champ as well. We'll get to the game tonight. We were rapping a little bit before we started the interview about how pumped up you are just as a fan to watch LeBron and Steph tonight. We'll promise we'll definitely tee you up on that. But I want to go back to Minnesota for a moment, because 7 seasons in Cleveland, your first 6 with the T-Wolves, you won a rebounding title. It's interesting, though, Kevin, and I need some guidance here, because I'm sure the circumstances are uniquely different. But Marbury, he bounced. He didn't want to stay there. Kevin Garnett, he eventually moved on. You eventually moved on. There's rumblings about whether or not Karl Anthony Towns is long for Minnesota. Is there something fundamentally or inherently wrong with the franchise where their star players rarely stay?
I think it's just winning. For me, it was, I think, probably with KD and Cat, I can't speak for Stephen Marbury, but, I think, the not necessarily wanting to leave, but wanting to win more than anything factored in, at least for me. And I was getting to a point in my career where we hadn't made the playoffs. We had several young teams. A couple of years we really had a revolving door. Some guys went through injuries. We lost some star players, and we were never truly able to grow together. So there was a number of factors that, one, were in our control, but two, not exactly in our control as well. And I think, you try and fight that and putting together a team from ownership and a front office standpoint. But for me, I thought it was time to move on. And, thankfully, the summer offered itself up, and LeBron had gone back to Cleveland. He kind of called me, asked me what I was thinking, and really the rest is history. So I'm very thankful for everything that happened in Minneapolis and coming into my own and everything that happened within that 6 years, but also so thankful for the last 7 as well and how much I've grown on and off the floor. And again, becoming a champion, I left to win and understand what it meant to sacrifice at that level, learn in some ways the hard way, but just being around those groups, I think just, helped me grow, both inside and out.
Yeah, no, you've definitely grown a lot, Kevin, and we'll get to your partnership with GenoMind, which sounds like an unbelievable program that's out there to address mental health awareness, which you've obviously been very, very open about. But let's get to the core of what's happening in the NBA, the play-in games, which we saw experimentally last year in the NBA Orlando bubble. It worked. I think it was great. This year, we've been championing it. Some people have not. They've hated it. What are your thoughts as a player? What do you think about the NBA's play-in situations and some of the games we saw last night, which weren't really competitive?
Yeah, I mean, by the way, it was awesome to see Jason Tatum have that 50-point game. That was pretty great. And see Russ go out there. Obviously, I'm a huge fan and a friend of his, but Bradley Beal put it all out there for his team with the hamstring injury. Like that was a great game for me. I mean, the Hornets and Pacers are a little bit different because it was a blowout, but tonight I think as a fan, I mean, obviously people, with Cuban and with his, he's always been outspoken, but talking about the playing games and with Luka and understanding that guys are gearing up for the playoffs, and there's teams like a Brooklyn who needed this time being the number 2 seed in the East, and understanding that those guys, whether it be KD or whether it be Harden, are coming back from these injuries and get 8 to 10 days to kind of heal up, get on the court with guys that maybe haven't seen time together, including that big 3, and get to really prepare and be rested for that first round. And with the Lakers, it's a little bit different, and playing against Steph. And I think everybody's going to be, looking at that game. So as a fan, for me, I love it. As a fan of the league, taking myself out of, the player position and looking as a fan, I love it. But in teams that, dealt with injuries and they're still, for that matter, getting over them, being the Lakers and maybe some others, it's probably a tough pill to swallow. But, unfortunately, some unlucky situations and, some close games that they may have lost put them in this situation. But as a fan, I got to think it's going to be great to see these games tonight.
I can't wait to get your answer on this. We're told the great Kevin Love is with us here on the show, Tiki and Tierney. You know Kyrie. You played with him, obviously. You won with him. And he's a unique cat. And he's been all over the map this year, from at one point being AWOL to just as recently as a few days ago, really, talking about some serious world issues, which is great. I guess the question, knowing what you know about Kyrie and hearing what you've heard from Kyrie, do you think his focus, Kevin, is where it needs to be for a lengthy 2-month run to a championship?
I do. I think Kyrie got to understand, what it meant to lock in a long playoff run. I mean, he was so unbelievable in those runs that we had. He's been great this year, despite what people may think or what we're talking about here. And I'm happy that he's been able to find peace and look inward and kind of settle in with really who he is and what he's about. I mean, he's an advocate, a philanthropist, an athlete, maybe in that order. And he's been able to, kind of behind the scenes, if you peel back the curtain, he's been able to make a huge impact in many people's lives just outside of the realm of basketball. And on top of that, there's times where he may have said the wrong thing. Nobody's perfect. He may have, been somewhat of a distraction, but we don't know really what's going on in that locker room. So, and I've learned that from being on the Cavs, especially in those 4 runs to the final, that sometimes it can be chaotic. You can thrive under that. Sometimes, there's many different storylines. It becomes a soap opera type scenario. But I think when it's time to lock in, Kyrie will be right there. And he had a great season. I mean, he finished up against us that last regular season game, and he's a 50, 40, 90 guy, only the 9th guy to ever do that. And to be a guard and to shoot over 40% and 90% from the free throw line, yeah, I mean, that's impressive in itself. But to shoot over 50% from the floor at his size is actually truly remarkable when you factor in those other 2 stats on top of that.
I just want to take back, you used the word or the term that he's found peace. And maybe I'm hanging on your words too literally here, because to me, Kevin, not when I watch him play, I mean, he's unbelievable. He's ninth ever, 50, 40, 90. But to me, I don't feel like I'm watching a player. This is really at the podium post game when he talks, that has found peace. He seems incredibly conflicted to me, almost as if he doesn't enjoy basketball. See, that's what I see.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's all about finding balance. Again, it's from how I knew Kyrie and where I knew Kyrie, in my first year in 14-15 to where he is now. I think just finding his voice and understanding that his words do hold value. And this is different than saying the earth is flat. You know what I mean? This is
Sure.
trying to be outspoken on really important issues, whether it be and most of the time social injustice and just unrest around the world. So I think at the very least, just bringing this to the forefront of conversation. Maybe at peace is the wrong terminology and the wrong word, but as far as being able to be comfortable enough to be outspoken, understanding that people are going to hate you for good works and for evil, but being comfortable in that and sticking up for what you believe in. If your intent is there, you have to also make sure that you understand what the impact is going to be, either in the short term or in the long term. But I think it comes from a good place for him. I just think we can all stand to also be better educated and kind of find out who we are in a much more impactful and insightful way.
We're going to let you run. Over, under, one answer. Steph Curry, 50 piece tonight or what? You going over 50 or under?
I mean, he's going to – I know he's going to will his team. With the Lakers being the number 1 defense in the league, it'll be interesting to see how they guard them. I know they're going to be planning, and he's occupying some space in the Lakers' brains right now. But I think Steph is a 40 piece tonight. Winner or loser, that's a toss up for me.